Welcome back to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. We are broadcasting from the Concierge Landscape Studios. We're brought to you this hour by Extreme Exteriors and American Family Insurance, the Kim Bennett Agency. Before we go on, we want to remind our listeners, in hour 2, we have a free gift for you. It's a newsletter, bi-monthly one that we put together, where a lot of the topics that we cover on the show, we cover in further detail. A lot of the guests that you've heard on our show write for this newsletter as well. Great resource. Over 23,000 people receive it now. What do you need to do for you to start receiving it? Well, give us a call at New Concepts during the week at 952-922-2500. Ask for Courtney, and she'll make sure that you start receiving it, either a hard copy mailed to you or electronically. One of the other things that we have on there, for example, we have a list of free webinars that can be looked at. You can register in the comfort of your own very home. In the evenings, they're about half an hour, 45 minutes in length. We've got one coming up on May 3rd, and it'll be on what is the role of the board of directors in a homeowners association. How do you use this thing called Robert's Rules of Order?
Mm-hmm.
We've got a lot of people who've signed up for it, but there's still time. You can go to our website at www.newconceptsgroup.com and register. Well, let's talk about this new ruling that is taking place with the ADA concerning pools. Tony, tell our listeners a little bit about this. And this was something that kind of caught a lot of people by surprise, I think.
Well, yeah, the ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act, has come up with a new standard. They call it compliant Section 242, that it's standards for accessible design as it relates to the provision of accessible entry and exit to existing swimming pools, wading pools, and spas. They've extended the deadline, but we were talking about it last week, trying to figure out, is this going to affect homeowners associations and condo associations? And we have an article today that says, yeah, it probably will.
Yeah, it maybe not quite to the extent that we thought, but there's still, I think, a good number of opportunities where associations would fall into this. It's not black and white by any means, where an association can say, oh, that doesn't apply to us.
That's right. And in fact, maybe I should describe more. What they're talking about specifically is installing lifts that will allow people in wheelchairs or with other kinds of physical disabilities to get in and out of swimming pools on their own, or ramps that they could wheel down in their wheelchair. So, and we're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars to retrofit swimming pools with this
That's
type
right.
of access.
And depending on the size of the pool, they need to have at least one of those items, a ramp or a lift. If it's of a certain size, they have to have at least two.
Yeah.
You know?
So it seems like, in this article anyway, from the Washington Post, dated April 19th, this article says that a lot of homeowner association attorneys have been advising their clients that this ADA ruling doesn't apply to associations.
Yeah, and I would be cautious about that. There's something that was stated in this article. The one that we're referring to was written by the Washington Post in the real estate section last week, and it begins in the article by stating the fundamental principle behind the Americans with Disabilities Act is to provide equal opportunity to people with disabilities. I'd like to just deal with that phrase in and of itself, because I think it's important. Mm-hmm. My wife is always really good about letting me know that words have meanings, you know, and you have to be specific,
yes.
you know.
Yes.
And so in this idea, I'll read the statement again. The entire fundamental principle behind the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, is to provide equal opportunity to people with disabilities. And I think the operative word here is opportunity. But I think there is a difference what some people may be referring to or trying to legislate or get around in ruling is guarantees. That's my idea.
Opportunity versus guarantees. The thing that came to my mind was this statement does not say only in commercial ventures. Only in situations where the facility is open to the public. It doesn't say that, does it?
No.
It says Americans with disabilities provide them with equal opportunity.
Yes.
Generally anywhere.
And I like the idea providing opportunity. I mean that's central to our Constitution, to our Bill of Rights, to the preamble that, we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not the guarantee of happiness.
Right.
And I think what is happening is we are getting to a point with this whole idea of fair housing, the idea of that there could be discrimination and possibility of it. I think I told you before the show. To me, it almost seems like we're getting to the same intensity of the Salem witch trials.
No,
that seems really
them strong words.
Yeah, it does. But what I mean by that is that during that time period, it was very important, the sensitivities of what people believed in that community in Salem, and so what did they have? They had the idea was that you were almost guilty until proven innocent, and the idea that as soon as someone was charged, because they were so hypersensitive, the charge was enough to make people to automatically vilify that person.
Sure, they were guilty.
Isn't that what we've had? Isn't that what this whole Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman thing that's been
public
in the news
reaction
over and over again?
Yeah.
The idea is we have been so sensitive as a country and as a nation, and to a certain degree, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
That we have a sensitivity about people who have disabilities, people who come from another experience, and making sure that they have the same opportunities.
Right.
But there's a difference between an opportunity and a guarantee.
Yeah.
And as the distinctive, hasn't it always been this idea that with the ADA that if all you had to do was make a reasonable accommodation, you allow that to take place. But what it's always been understood that accommodation is at the expense of the person who's asking for that that item. Right?
Well, in rental housing, the idea of a reasonable modification, I think, is what you're talking about, where something physically has to be changed in the housing in order for a person with a disability to make use of that housing. If it's reasonable, the landlord or owner of the property must provide it. But the renter with a disability pays for it, and also pays to restore the property to its original condition. So the American with a disability is given the opportunity to live here and have modifications done, but they are going to be responsible for the cost. An accommodation means changing a rule of some kind in order to allow someone to have the opportunity.
Again, the idea that words have meanings.
Words have meanings. That's right. That's right. And so in this case, how does this apply in this case, Gene? You think that we should be altering every swimming pool, spa, and whatever the other thing was in the country to accommodate someone with a disability?
Well, it seems, in our desire to be very sensitive about this subject, it seems like it's overkill. Let's give an example about parking, for example. You can go to any major shopping area or a public area, and you have to have so many handicap spots.
That's right.
We know that number is based on the total number of people with disabilities, not just those that are in wheelchairs. The person who is deaf, for example, has no problem getting up and walking. But
from their car, parking and walking. I see what you're saying.
Yes. We've gone to the point of overkill, and so we are in a society where now to accommodate, you have all kinds of parking areas that are open on any given time, because people aren't allowed. To me, that may seem to indicate that we really haven't thought through this. Not that there shouldn't be, but maybe we ought to think through it more.
Maybe. The number of spaces is based on the size of the facility. It's not based on any count of people with disabilities. So depending on the size of the shopping center, or the number of seats in the restaurant, or the number of units in the apartment building, isn't that what the number of handicap spaces is based upon?
But that is based on the census and the people with people with disabilities.
Right,
it does go back to that.
Gotcha.
But you're right.
And there are some circumstances where I think it's really kind of ridiculous. As you know, I was involved in planning a new building. Oh, we're running out of time.
Well, I tell you, why don't you save that story? And you can tell us about that story. We're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, more about the ADA and rules for swimming pools.